and turn it over to Zully. Oh,
Thank you.
sorry. I'm going to put in the chat box. Sorry, everyone. If you would like PD hours, please sign into this Google form, and you can get your PD hours that way. I apologize. All right, all yours, Zully.
Thank you very much, Krista. Good morning, everyone, and I hope everybody can hear me well. I so appreciate the time that we are going to be together. And the first thing I would like you to do is for you to be comfortable, for you to do whatever it feels for you to be okay with yourself, to be present during this time together. I know we all are doing a lot of video conferencing, and that's very exhausting on the eyes. So if you feel more comfortable just to leave your name in and without the camera, please do so. You don't have to be feeling like you have to show your face to be present. I know that by just seeing your name, I know you are present. And obviously, we are going to have always access to the microphone. So if you have a question during this presentation, please feel free to share. And as we are working together today towards this topic of how to better support children, students, and their families, and you and your family during this difficult time, I think it is very important for us to be able to just be present right now. So I will encourage you right now to maybe close your eyes. Maybe close your eyes, maybe look at something that brings you calm, that comforts you. I know some of you are sitting in your favorite chair, touching your favorite blanket, or maybe you are just enjoying a nice hot cup of tea. That is what I want you to do right now. Let's take just a moment to close our eyes and go there. What makes you feel comfortable? What makes you feel relaxed? And while we're doing that, let's take 3 big breaths. Very well now. Let's open our eyes and let's exhale through noise those hard feelings, those deep thoughts. So maybe doing something like this. I want to hear everybody doing something like this. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it one more time. Very nice. Very nice. How did that feel for you guys? How did that feel to start our day doing this little exercise? And I am going to share my screen. So please bear with me. All right. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Can somebody make a sound so I know you're hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So our topic for today is trauma-informed approach to education during challenging times. You share the concern on how to better support families and students during difficult transitions, during traumatic events, especially like the ones we are experiencing today. And what I wanted to share with you is that we know that using principles that are trauma-informed, relationship-based, and strength-based can always support individuals during difficult transitions, during difficult times. And I know that many of the concepts that we are going to be covering today, you probably already have heard them, you probably have already been trained on them. However, sometimes it's important to refresh. Oh, yes, that's true. This is a resource that we have. Oh, yes, that's true. This is a tool that we have. Through our time together, we're going to explore those strategies that can better help us to be able to support others. Now, it is very important during this time together that we do a self-check of ourselves. The best way to be able to support others is if you're able to support yourself. And I need to share with you a little bit of what I do so you can understand where is that coming from. As an infant mental health provider, I work directly with agencies, and I also work directly with families with high-risk factors. And through research, we have found out that the best way you can support somebody else is if you are okay yourself. If you can be able to be kind to yourself, to take care of yourself in a way that your dysregulation is able to calm down, so then you can provide that calmness to those around you. And it's not only about providing it to your family, but it's also to your coworkers, to the students that you have. And we're going to talk about that parallel process. You are what you feel. So how you feel is going to be translated in how you interact with others. And that is very, very important to remember during those difficult times. So right now, I want you to do a self-check of how are you doing? Where are you at right now? So let's start talking about a trauma-informed school practice. And this is something that we have known for a long time. In order for us to be able to support somebody, to be able to allow them to process whatever is happening, I want you to take a look to phase one, connecting, which is attunement, right? And I know many of you have heard this, the attunement, the empathy, right? By now, many of you have watched that Brené Brown video of empathy. And this is probably one of the most important things to keep in mind during traumatic experiences. The ability to be able to connect on that emotional level to yourself first. And we're always going to be talking like this. Is this a matter of connecting to yourself in this emotional level? So then you can connect to others, right? So how are you doing with that? How are you doing with connecting to yourself? To be kind to yourself. So then you can replicate that and be kind toward others, to be able to connect. And then that phase 2, we call it, is that phase of mentoring, stabilization, self-regulation, social emotional learning, right? So once you have connected with somebody, once you have be able to attune emotionally with somebody, then it becomes this period of, oh, you get me. Oh, you get me, so I can put my guard down. So I'm going to be able to self-regulate, right? And that is what we want. One of the powerful things about attunement is your ability to be able to then provide self-regulation. And that is so important right now. Self-regulation. How can I bring that anxiety back? How can I, as an educator, be able to bring myself to baseline so then I can support others? So through attunement, we reach self-regulation, right? That social emotional learning, that coaching that at times we as educators engage to be able to support others. Because only by reaching self-regulation, we then can move to a phase 3, which is cognitive engagement, executive function, right? And you have here this. You have here when somebody is dysregulated, what happens? The prefrontal cortex functioning goes totally gone. It's gone. People are unsurvivable. Just think about how you felt when you heard about what is happening. A lot of us went into this dysregulation, right? And it's hard to think. It's hard to think when you are dysregulated. So regulation eventually is going to facilitate that cognitive engagement. And I have to say that you guys have done this beautifully, because I have seen how many of you have been able to do that. And I'm going to go back to that side before I leave. I have seen how many of you have been able to connect with their children, have been able to connect with yourself and maybe your family about, hey, how are you doing? By acknowledging, yeah, these are difficult times. Yes, this kind of sucks. Name it, put a name on it, validate that emotion that is hard. And I have seen you guys doing it through lessons, through homeworks. I was looking at an assignment the other day when an English teacher give an assignment to children where they say, hey, I want you to tell me, how are you doing? And that how are you doing is attunement, right?
Has she frozen for other people? Yeah. Zully, we lost you there for a second. Can you hear us?
Oh, do you guys any questions so far?
You froze there for about a minute. You were frozen on it. Can you repeat that just really quick?
That I have seen how some of you are already implementing elements of how to attune, how to self-regulate students through assignments. I have seen some of you, for example, using lessons plans that help students, calm down or think about something else, right? And that thinking about something else also helps regulate students. Is that?
Yes, we had someone in the Ramses in the comments said, yes, be honest. It's okay to express our emotions. Tell our kids to feel that way too.
Yes, that is something very important. The validation of feelings, right? Validation of feelings allows you to connect. That is very powerful. To acknowledge with your students, hey, yeah, this is hard. I know it's hard.
And I know, yes, I wish I could go and have an ice cream with my friends. You know, those little comments help students to know, like, wow, you're going through the same. Because for children, it's different, right? They see things different. They might be feeling like, oh, you are not going through what I'm going. So letting them know, like, yeah, this is hard for me too, and I know, you know. But then after you do the validation, we also need to be reframing, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Are there any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Okay, we're gonna continue. And in your screen, you have that trauma-informed school practices. You know, obviously it's community-driven. We have to talk about the effects on situations like this to what they do to the brain, you know? We have to think that this will have an impact on brain development, but at the same time, we know that relationships are going to be crucial right now. That contact with nurturing and caring relationships are going to be crucial for children to be okay. And you, as an educator, are probably one of the most important relationships on a child's life, because you are able to keep that constant, uninterrupted caring resource of safety, right? We always talk about safety, and we know that a lot of children look for that safety in a school environment, especially those that were already exposed to previous trauma. More than ever before, that relationship that you have with the children should be a source of safety and security. And a lot of teachers have asked me before, well, you know, how am I going to do that now? Well, you guys are actually already doing it by reaching out, sending email, through homeworks. You guys are doing a beautiful job through homeworks, integrating very caring comments. Hey, you know, let's think about things that we can do together in the classroom, in the Zoom classroom, or through activities, or tell me about what you do with your family. And listening, you know, just listening what your students are sharing, you know, and validating. Yeah, I can hear that you don't understand. I have been reading, for example, in my son's homework and classroom, Google Classrooms, how they're able to share how they feel about certain homeworks. Like, I don't understand this, you know, and that is so important to come back and say, I know this is a little bit confusing, you know, validating those feelings. And that brings a sense of security. The fact that you are acknowledging, hey, you know what, we're going to do the best we can, and nobody's asking to do anything perfect, but we need to try to do our best. That brings a lot of safety in a child's mind. That brings a lot of consistency on, like, oh, I know she's still there for me. What do you think about this? How do you feel about this? How are you doing in feeling at times that you're not doing enough? And I know that has been the take for a while, that you guys are not feeling like you're doing enough. But let me reiterate you that we are all doing what we can. And you need someone to tell you that you are doing what you need to be doing, and you guys are doing great. You guys are doing great, because nobody gave us a manual to, hey, let's how to deal with this, right? So how are you doing with that?
I'm just going to say that I think this is just great information, because the first couple weeks you're just kind of trying to reach out to your students, and then some of them are doing what they normally do, and sometimes they're not. And then when the ones that you really don't hear from at all, and you start finally getting a little time to make those extra phone calls or getting a hold of them through their parents, etc., they really do just reach out and say, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm like 3 weeks behind. I don't know what to do. And when you tell them it's, it's going to be okay. We are going to work through it and we'll help you. And they need that. And we need that too. But just having that personal connection with them just seems to, this just validates what really they've come to say the last couple of days anyway.
Yes, yes. And if, thank you so much for sharing. And if there's one strategy that I know you guys already doing is that ability to bring the child to baseline, to let him know it is okay. We will work it out. Those are probably the most powerful words that you can tell anybody, regardless if it is a child, an adult, and a coworker right now. Because everybody's feeling that anxiety, because everybody is not sure if they are doing or not enough. So by validating and reassuring, you know what, this is hard, we're gonna work it out, do not worry, we'll find out a way to work it out. And what I want to point out is how important it is, that relationship, when it comes to attachment. And when you think of attachment, a lot of people wants to go to the parents, right? Like, well, this is more about the parents. We're not really. Attachment really happens, with every relationship. And one of the important things about continuing that contact with others is the attachment that each one of your students have with you. Your relationship with them and their relationship that they see on you, that is probably one of the most important attachments right now. And how is it that you can continue nurturing, right? By being you. I think it's also important to say by being you, by being more caring, by being more kind. And at the same time, by always having that lens, and this is what I have after attachment, that lens of a strength base. And I know you have heard this before. Let's put on our glasses of a strength base, right? Let's put on our glasses of that lens of a strength base, especially with students that we feel like, oh my God, something's happening. And maybe we were aware that a student had already so many risk factors. And now, with this situation, they're probably more at risk. And we go to this flight zone, right? The fight, flight, or freeze zone. And we tend to get dysregulated. And how are you doing with that? I want to stop here and check in with you. How are you doing with feeling that you are concerned? How are you feeling with that?
I have some comments in the chat that go with that. Some are feeling like maybe they're not doing enough academically, but they're just working so hard to make that contact and establish those relationships. And some of those, it's hard to do without one-to-one technology for some of our families. And so that's been challenging, working towards equity and just being able to contact our families. And then we had an administrator say, a great reminder that the administrators need to keep telling their teachers, we know you're doing a great job. And, we appreciate all that you're doing, and they need to hear it as well. But just making sure that we're giving each other that encouragement, and we are all hearing that we are doing our very best, and our kids know that too.
This is Dina. I'm so sorry. Just wondering if I could chime in for a second.
Oh. Dina, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, just get a little closer.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I just wanted to say too, we've been talking a lot in our district about also, as we're trying to do all of this for children, also trying to recognize that we need to really make sure that we're reaching out to our teachers as well, because I was reading a book by Brad Montague about how to be a better grown-up, and talking about how we as teachers, as educators, are guiding children through one of the biggest most unknown things in their lifetime as they know it so far. And we're doing this as joyfully as we possibly can, while at the same time, on the back end, we're navigating something that is absolutely, completely brand new, and we've never navigated before either. And so we were talking about just basically how do we extend that same type of making sure that all of those that are in our staff families understand that as much as we're encouraging them to do that with students, we're trying to encourage them to do that for themselves as well, because like everybody's navigating, like today they're figuring out how they're going to navigate tomorrow, because tomorrow has never yet in history happened for us. And so they are doing, everyone is, if you have to start with the assumption that everybody is truly doing the best that they can, and really wholeheartedly believe that, I think that's kind of a start, because like the teachers are doing something that is a phenomenal piece of work in children right now, and they will never forget that. So I need to say that, because I can't get enough educators to know that's how I feel, and I need them to know that.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And that is so true. That is so true. We have to start with ourselves, especially those who provide support to others. You have to think about yourself. You have to be more mindful about checking on how am I doing. Because I know, and I have seen you as an educator of being so very, very positive and very strength-based when you talk, and that is great. But I also need you to remember that you need to take care of yourself. And we are going to be talking about that. You know, self-care is very important, more than ever before, to be able to do that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, we do need to all be reminded that we need to start with us, especially because we support so many other people. We need to find a way to have that balance ourselves. Thank you for that. Continuing with what we were sharing, this is just a summary, right? You know, those components of a trauma-informed care: creating a safe environment, the importance of relationship and connectivity needs, and supporting and teaching emotional regulation, right? We already share those concepts. So I will say that takeaway from trauma is that continue providing that safe space that you're already doing. I don't want you to feel like, how do I do that? No, you are already doing by reaching out. By, you know what, and I hear you with the technology, because I am one of those persons that I don't have access to internet. I actually had to drive somewhere else right now to be here. So it's hard. It's gonna be hard for some families, and I wonder what are the alternatives. We know that in home visiting programs, they're reaching out through phone. Can we schedule a phone call, you know? And I don't know, you know, how other things have you done? Maybe some of you already done that, you know, reaching them by phone. So maybe thinking about how else can we reach out and continue building those relationships, connectivities, and, you know, providing that support that they need. Okay, I am gonna move another layer of trauma on them. And we know that trauma affects children in different ways, and so their parents, right? Because we cannot separate the children from the parents. We have to talk about the family unit. So yes, this is going to have an impact, but we also have to remember, I don't want you to get stuck on like, oh my God, what is this going to do to their brains and development and learning? I don't want you to get stuck in that, because we also know that the most powerful thing you can do for children is to have a consistent and caring relationship. And they already have that with you. And they already have that with at least one adult, maybe in their household. And we know that that is a protective factor that will help those children to get through. And we talk about resilience. These children are very resilient. They're going to be able to figure out a way to cope. But the best thing we can do for them is to be present. Presence. Mindfulness is going to be very important because it helps regulate children. And we talked about this before. I want to introduce you now. I'm going to stop here for a minute because I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Are there any questions, any thoughts, something that you would like to share?
We had a lot of great conversations going in the chat that I'll try to summarize quickly. That you're striking a lot of chords with everyone. Teresa shared, it's important to be your authentic self. This is not the time to compare yourself to how someone else is doing. Be diligent and be your best. Dina shared, give permission to ask how you're doing to yourself. Remember that saying you can't fill an empty cup. You need to be able to fill your own cup so that you can overflow and give to others. And then they really loved that assist chart and wondered if we could get a copy of that. So if you could share that with me and I'll put it in the teacher folder.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I will send the whole power presentation to you guys so you guys can do whatever you want to do. And I apologize in advance because I did not have the time to add the reference, because just like you, I have been doing a lot of this webinars trying to put everything together to be able to support a lot of people. So I apologize for that. If you need the reference, I can later on send them to you. So I apologize in advance that I might not have the links for the reference of where I got the information, okay? But yes, you will get the whole PowerPoint. I'm gonna email it to you, Krista, if that's okay.
Yep, you emailed me and I will get it into the teacher folder for everyone, and I'll post that in a second. So thank you very much.
Yes, and I'm so glad somebody brought up the fact of stop competing. Yes, right now, more than ever before, this is the time when your best asset is the relationship that you have with your students. That is going to be your most valuable assets. And instead of going on looking, oh, I should maybe step it up. And, because I know a lot of teachers, we are all different. But what it should remain the constant in your practice right now as educators is the relationship. So look at your students, and you are the experts, not the teacher next door, not the principal, not the other administrator. The expert on that relationship that you have with the student, it's you and nobody else. So you know better that student than nobody else. And that is right now your most valuable asset. Are there any questions?
I just wanted to share that I had posted, I don't feel like I'm doing as good a job on the education part, but we're still not allowed to do Zoom meetings with all the kids, just one-on-one, but I started a Facebook group. I got permission to do a private Facebook group with my parents, and it's been so much fun because I do live video in the morning. I have, I'll turn my video on. I brought my, I don't know if you can see, I brought my calendar stuff home and I put it on the wall. So I do a live video with my kids every morning. I've been doing live read alouds and just having them share pictures and what they're doing. And that's been fun too. This morning, a parent, while we were talking, posted pictures of her son. They planted seeds. So that, I feel like I'm doing a really good job of staying in touch, but I just can't get over the guilt about feeling like I'm not providing them with the right kind of education. That's the part that I am trying to work on myself, to kind of let that guilt go, that I'm sending stuff, I'm giving them access to sites, but I feel guilt.
Yes, yes, and it's, you know what, and this is probably one of the situations where, although we think we probably know we are not teaching, maybe we are just teaching in a different way. I highly doubt it that you are not teaching, because teaching takes many forms. And maybe more the feeling is, well, I'm not teaching like I'm used to. It's more, well, teaching is different now. So please give you some grace. And I do have to say that you are doing a wonderful job trying to make those adaptations of how is teaching looking like right now. And you following a process. This is part of what trauma brings into everyone. This dysregulation that you feel, we are feeling it, the same. I don't feel like, oh my God, maybe I'm not doing enough, or, I'm not doing the teaching. It's just a process. And we're going to talk about the process of grieving. We are all grieving right now the loss of a routine, the loss of a normal that we were used to. So this is part of your grieving process. We are all grieving that. And we're going to touch into that. While we have in the screen, I want to just stop and take a minute to observe what we have in the screen. What we have in the screen is what's known as the psychological first aid. You approach individual, you stabilize their emotions, you serve their needs, you inform them of the facts, you support their history, their story, you turn them towards further service. Okay, so what happens to some drastic events, a pandemic, a natural disaster, what happens is everybody goes into the reptile brain, which is survival mode, right? That's what happens. And one thing about survival mode is that it's going to take time for some of us to go back to be stable on those emotions, right? So that's what we were talking about, how important it is. We need to spend some time regulating, because if regulation does not take place, learning is not taking place. You cannot, and you know this, when a child is upset, when a child is under stress, learning doesn't take place, because the prefrontal cortex is gone, because you have a child acting up with the reptilian brain, which is the survival mode. So this is your psychological first aid chart. After we stabilize, you check on the basic needs. And you guys did this, and I have seen it. And every time I compare this chart to what the school districts are doing, I'm so amazed how much you already know about this. This is what you did. You immediately after you switch to providing online education, you made sure every child had access to food. That is basic needs. That's your access to basic needs, to whatever they needed to be okay. And I was so grateful. I was jumping of happiness when I heard that you guys were doing that, because I was concerned that many children that depend on that food to be okay, we're going to be left out. And when I hear that you guys were organizing yourself to keep feeding the children, to even keep feeding families, because I have here some districts saying, you know what, we don't ask. We don't ask how many lunches you need. Just tell us and we'll give them to you. And that is wonderful. So you are providing those basic needs. And something that remains important during the psychological first aid is the fact that we all need to keep informed. That is important, right? It's important to know what government is saying, what your administration is saying. So information is important. Now, information should not stay plugged to the news 24/7, because that takes a toll. Yes, we need to be informed, but we need to be able to time it, Make a decision on that. Some people have shared with me, like, you know what, Zully, I do 10 minutes, 20 minutes in the morning, and then right before I go to bed, I watch the briefing, half an hour. Whatever it is that you need to do to be informed, you need to do that. But do not get into this, 24/7. We need to be able to be more mindful. Like, I want you to catch yourself checking your phone for news. This is going to take a little bit of reframing on, I need to stay away from the news, let's move into other things. And I know for a lot of you guys, working helps. Working helps you to distract you, to say, oh, I need to do this. That helps you a lot. I guess I'm going to stop right here to ask you, how are you doing with that? How are you doing with toning it down a little bit on how much you take in from the news? How are you doing? Any thoughts, any comments?
I have some in the chat here. Michelle was saying better this week. It was a struggle last week. So I think getting a little bit, each day gets a little easier with that. Better than the beginning. Some are using the time to do things that help others. So Debbie is working on making masks to give to others. Marcia says she watches it for 10 minutes in the morning and then the 6 p.m. news, and she's done. So she's really monitoring her time and the amount of exposure she's getting for it. Julie's saying working helps her to keep her mind off, and she does notice a difference in her feelings when she stops watching the news. And then Lindsay said she's concerned about our students being exposed to the news and what our students are hearing and learning from the sources around them.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and I know that by now we have been, getting used to this new routine. Most of 4 weeks with this new routine. So I know for many of us, we already have a routine, and I know it looks very dysfunctional right now, because that should be the name right now, but still a routine. So in a way that gives us a structure. And I know it's, it's just different. Somebody was asking me the other day, so how does your routine looks like? And I was like, my children are waking up like 11 or 12. And it's okay because I can work in the morning, and they wake up, they eat breakfast at 12. And then they fight, and then I get to do some work, and then they get to do some homework, and they fight a little bit more. And when I'm saying fighting is that, that sibling fight, the snapping. And you know what? I let that happen because I know children have different ways of venting. We're going to talk about this too. Venting is going to look very different with everybody. Children are going to get more snappy, just like us. We get snappy, and, and there has to be, we have to provide that space for children to come at you, snap a little bit, because it's just a stress, it's just a stress. So I am sure you all have stories of, maybe catching yourself being snappy, or maybe catching your children, or maybe even your students complain like, oh my God, I don't understand anything. You're crazy. This is too much, And you know what? Don't internalize it. Do not make it personal, because this is a stress. All this, parents, and I know you have this, parents writing you this long email say, oh my God, you're nuts. I'm not going to be teaching this. I don't know how to do this. And I'm not good at math, whatever, this is all venting. This is all venting. And we need to remember, where is this coming from? This comes from a place where we are all just highly dysregulated. So, I think it's important to keep that in mind. And going down through the list of the psychological first aids, and then you have the support their story, right? We still have to support who they are, who our students are, who our families are, Not everybody, and I'm going to put my family as an example, not everybody has, parents that are very good about, hey, okay, we're going to do this today, and very creative. No, so we're going to have to support parents and support students where they are at. What do they have to work with? How can I do it? And, we're just going to have to be there. Just provide support. And then turn them to our further services. This is also important. And I know you already do it. You are already doing this. You probably hear a student that says, well, we are in need of X, Y, and Z, and maybe some of you are very resourceful and say, hey, I know this organization is providing that. And I'm thinking about food pantries. I'm thinking about maybe some churches giving hot meals, or, there are so many resources in the community that I have seen how some of you as teachers, because I actually am looking at, and I'm not stalking, and I'm not stalking anybody, but I have seen how teachers are, uploading resources on their Facebook too. So that is supporting the community through these times. So that is your psychological first aid. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving, because I don't want you to feel like we're spending all the time in this. Okay, remember, I'm going to stop and ask you first before I go to the next topic. Are there any thoughts, any comments, anything that you want to share?
And feel free to unmute yourself and share too, but I'll share what's in the comments here. We had some, as you were talking about that, some were saying, sometimes I just let myself cry, and crying can be a release. Others were saying some ways that they're taking some self-care, SGN with John Krasinski, taking gratitude walks every day and thinking about the joy and things in the life and circle of influence, things you do have influence over. And then Dina just shared that image is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. So.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. And this is, as you can see, this is the picture of a waterfall. Mm-hmm. And, as we think about the concept of the waterfall, you can see that in the top part, and I don't know if you can see the arrow. Are you guys seeing the arrow of the mouse? Can somebody let me know? Yes or no?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So as you see the arrow, this whole part, the waterfall is really a beautiful analogy of grieving, on the grief process. And you see it's still very beautiful, right? So this is the analogy, right? Especially when we're trying to explain it to children. And when I'm thinking about children, maybe you are trying to find very creative ways to explain to your children, how is this going, right? So on the top of the waterfall,
this was our normal, right? This is what's our normal before this event. This is what's our normal. You know, it was very calm, beautiful. It's, you know, high with some flowers there and beautiful, beautiful sight. And then this is what happens when we have, you know, a drastic event happen in our lives, you know, a big fall, you know, and thinking about what happened right now, that is a big fall, you know, if you can see the big fall. So that is a big traumatic event, right? So while the water is going down, of course, it's crashing, right? You see some splashes there while it crashes through some stones, and, you know, the water then splashes all over. So we're thinking about how trauma, you know, does have an impact, and things at the time are going to look very dysregulated. You know, think about all the splash and how the water goes all over the place, right? It's like a big mess, right? And then what happens next? Right at the bottom, what you see here is a lot of steer water, right? Kind of like still very steer, but at least all the water is not falling down, right? And then after that, then you start seeing how the water, once again, starts taking its course, right? And what happened while we're going through that? You know, you're starting to see the waters get a little bit calmer, right? But one important thing to notice is that you are not experiencing the same normal, right? So now you're not here. This is not your normal anymore, but this is it, right? And on this new normal, look at that. Look at that, how beautiful. On this normal, the sun will still shine. And there will be flowers, and there will be green grass, and there will be beautiful mountains. And above all, we will all have a beautiful blue sky. And that is very similar on how people grieve situations, especially situations like this. I am going to stop here just to look at the picture. Just take a moment to look at the picture and think about your own waterfall. And maybe later on today, do look for a picture of a waterfall, the waterfall that you find, you know, most beautiful, that really calls to you, that really makes you feel great. And look at it and think about how can we appreciate that. Are there any comments? Are there any thoughts?
I think you probably brought blood pressure down on a lot of people. So I just, as I was listening to that, trying to visualize, and probably having gone through some grief stuff myself in my family, that visualization and that analogy that you used for the waterfall and the grief is phenomenal. I don't even know what to say about that. I don't want to cry in front of everybody, but it's like, it's absolutely amazing. But I think also, I feel like maybe there's a way to, you did make people breathe. Why? I mean, if anybody did what I did, I'm sitting here, I think my breathing rate is even slower by even just looking at that and taking a moment. But that sunshine up in the upper left-hand corner, even looking at it through a PowerPoint, gives you warmth. And that conversation, it will be okay. Yeah, it will be okay. We just get to decide what things we want to take back to that normal, the new normal. I always call it the new norm, but that was a phenomenal analogy and conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And yes, it will be a new normal. Yes, it will be a new normal. Anybody else would like to share?
I would just say that I'm really grateful for this particular webinar. It's hard to know which ones to go to. It seems like there's tons of training everywhere, but just a little mental piece has been really nice this morning. So kind of a breath of fresh air in that way.
I am so glad. I am so glad and grateful that I can provide this space for you. So yes, this is something that I will encourage everyone to spend some time. We need to be more mindful about nurturing our soul right now, to be able to self-regulate, to be able to be a little bit, to find that peace that we need right now. And by being mindful, whatever that is, that means to you, some people say they enjoy, music, or, I enjoy comedy, so I probably have gone through a lot of Comedy Central YouTube clips like crazy, and I am okay with that. But it does have to be very intentional. We need to make the time. We need to be more intentional of like, I'm going to spend 5 minutes or 3 minutes in looking at something that brings me comfort or that makes me laugh, and they have great memes outside right now, pictures, very funny too. So whatever that it looks like for you, please do it. Be more mindful, because that's a very big part of being able to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. So you can be present when students are exhibiting very dysregulated behaviors, and parents, I can see a lot of parents maybe reaching to you through phone and via mail. So just keep in mind that's going to help you to say, you know what, I know this is coming from a place where they are just very dysregulated. And that analogy of the waterfall is very similar to what Kubler-Ross came up with, the grieving cycle. You go through different stages of grieving, and the first thing is denial, that avoidance, the confusion. That water, when the waterfall goes down and impacts the rocks and splashing everywhere, that is that denial, like, oh my God, what's going on? There's this still water and murky water, and you cannot see through. And, that brings a lot of feelings, You might feel upset and frustrated and anxious, which I know some of us are still here. And then some of us might go to depression, and we have to call it. Yeah, some of us might a little bit depressed, and I want you to know it's okay. You can feel this, and I'm so glad to hear that some of you are crying, and I don't mean it on a let's all cry together, but it is so important that if you're feeling something, take the time. If crying helps you, my gosh, cry. And I know some people are different. Some other people are singing. I know somebody who needs to sing like super loud to be able to release that energy. So whatever it is, feel that you need to be able to release that energy, do it. And remember how at the beginning of this time together, I told you, I want you just to let go with sound. And I told you, do this. That is actually a very good exercise for your lungs, and you can feel the stress coming out of your shoulders and your neck. So be mindful that yes, we're going to experience some depression, and then we're going to go up, we're going to go up. Is that, when the water is kind of getting out of the confusion and it's starting to, okay, how can I be okay with this? How can I be okay with this new normal? We're going to start bargaining. You're going to try to find ways on how to be able to do this together. And then eventually, we're going to go to acceptance on, okay, we're going to have to accept and embrace this new normal. And that is what's going to need to happen. Are there any questions about this? Any thoughts?
I think Julie in our chat summed it up very well. She says, this webinar is wonderful. Thank you so much for reminding us to take care of ourselves. Thank you for validating what we are doing, that focusing on relationships with students is key, and that we shouldn't compare ourselves with others. We are teachers because we love kids and want to help them grow both in knowledge and emotionally. You truly have a gift. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate that. Would somebody be kind to tell me what time is it?
It is, we're just over, it's 11:16.
Okay. Do we have 10 more minutes?
You know what, we can keep going, and if others have to slip off to go to something else, that's fine, but you can keep going. That'd be great.
All right. And I apologize. I just want to make sure I provide enough space for everybody to contribute. There are some other pictures for children, maybe 5 stages of grief, denial, anger, some other ways to present this information: bargain, depression, acceptance, obviously with emojis. And, when people are grieving, especially children, we see changes in behavior. They're going to have problems concentrating, sleeping problems. Some of our kids are going to be more clingy, and if you have children yourself, you're going to see that, like, oh my God, they want to be on top of me 24/7. And we're going to see a little bit of developmental regression as well. And this is normal. And please feel free to share these to parents. And it's normal that children tend to regress when there's, that grieving process. There are going to be changes in behavior or play. And, there's some guilt too. Children tend to feel guilty about situations too. So do expect to see, changes in behavior, maybe from your students, maybe somebody who was always, okay with everything. Now all of a sudden it seems like, he's all over the place. So it's just part of that. Every child is going to process this very differently. And this is another, analogy of the waterfall. This is actually was created by, I don't have the name here, but it's called the Whirlpool of Grief. I will make sure you guys get that. And something that I wanted to talk to you, and this is going to summarize really the takeaway of today, that compassionate approach. So I'm going to play this video, and maybe some of you have heard about this analogy, but this is so true. When it comes to very strong feelings and trauma, the approach has always had to be, we need to acknowledge that the big elephant is in the room. We need to call it. We need to name it. It's going to be hard. It's not easy, but at the same time, we also have a horse, and we also have a giraffe, and we also have a camel that are going to help us bring balance. And you need to decide, who do you want to feed? And this is a great analogy for that. I'm going to let you video. I hope you can hear it. Let's see if it's going to play.
So Zully, we can't hear it, but we can see it, but it'll be part of your PowerPoint that you send to us. Maybe she can't hear me.
So I hope you were able to enjoy the video. Are there any thoughts?
So unfortunately, we couldn't hear it, but it will be on your PowerPoint. So we should be able to click on it when we open that up, correct?
Yes, yes. And the take of the video is that we will always have different feelings going on inside. Some of them are going to be fear and anxious and anger, but we also have to remember that we also have that kind voice on us, that kind voice that has helped us in the past by telling us it's going to be okay and we're going to get through this together. And it's not a matter of saying, oh, just ignore your strong feelings. No, it's a matter of acknowledging, yes, I know I am angry because I cannot go outside and play with my friends. I know I am sad because maybe I have somebody who is sick. But at the same time, I need to remember that there is a lot that I can see as positive. I am alive, and the sky is blue, and the sun bright, and today I can be here present and hearing your voice, and we need to remember that. So the focus every time through a trauma-informed is to validate that things happen, to validate that, yes, challenging times are tough, but at the same time to remember that we all have strengths. And as you, as the expert of your students, you know what their strengths are. And part of that, being compassionate and empathetic, this in the screen shows the three systems that we always need to be, acknowledging. Yes, we have our drive system, right? The system that makes you go for it and do this, and I'm going to put this, and I'm going to do this. And we also have to acknowledge that we have the threat system. And acknowledging that right now our threat system has been, used a lot because of what we're living to, it is important. But at the same time, let's not forget that we also have that soothing system, the capacity to be able to protect ourselves, to protect others, and that drive, and you see the drive on people making masks and people getting together to support each other, on people clapping for healthcare workers, clapping for teachers, clapping for people who are continuing the work. So let's not never forget that, it's not all about the threat. It's also about that balance that the drive and the soothing bring in all of us. And I think being more mindful about that reframing of things, and by reframing, I mean We need to let go of the things I cannot control. And this is a wonderful analogy. I hope you can see this in your screen, that I cannot control, so I can let go of things. So let go of things that you have no control. I cannot control if others follow the rules of social distancing. I cannot control the actions of others, but let's focus instead on the things that I can control. And I think as simple as, you know what, I can control at what time I take a shower today. I can control how much exercise do I today. I can control if I drink my favorite tea, if I have it. And I can control, simple thing, I made my bed today. So we have to learn to let go. More than ever, we have to learn to let go to things that we don't have control, and to remember to give ourselves grace, respect, and kindness to ourselves. Be kind to yourself. Be present. Be hopeful. And I will be thinking about each one of you as you embrace this new normal. And I will be walking with you as we all support each other through these times of transition and adaptation. And with this, I am going to end my presentation. Are there any thoughts, any questions, anything that you would like to share?
We have a lot of thank yous for this in the chat. Everybody's ending with a great big thank you. They really needed to hear this today.
Okay, I am very grateful for this time together. Stay safe, stay connected, but above all, stay hopeful.
Wonderful words. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Zully, and to all of those who were on here today. We had a big group, and we'll put the recording up as soon as I get that back also, so that we can get that into the folder so others can hear you if they couldn't be on with us this morning. So thank you, Zully, and thank you to everyone else. Have a safe and healthy weekend, and we'll be sending out next week's Zoom meetings a little bit later today, so you can be on the lookout for that.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Take care.
Too.